It's a big day for Tesla. The first production model of its Model 3 car is rolling off the assembly line in Fremont, California. This is Tesla's first attempt at a mass market car. It costs $35,000 US, about 45,000 Canadian, and nearly 400,000 of the vehicles have already been ordered. But Tesla is facing increasing competition from automakers like GM and Nissan, companies with big names and big pockets. Will it be able to survive in the market it created? Josipa Petrunic is the Executive Director and CEO of the Canadian Urban Transit Research and Innovation Consortium. So, Josipa, how important would you say this particular model is to Tesla's future?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, of course, Tesla would have been building up towards this moment over the last several years, and the big pitch here is to move into the middle-class economy. At the end of the day, it's still a high-priced car for a lot of Canadians or for North Americans in general, but it's a very important move for Tesla to be able to move out of the luxury segment and into what could be defined as a middle-class car environment.
Right. So how successful do you think it will be?
Well, in terms of the car itself, definitely the sexiness and coolness factor are there for Tesla. But I think we can't really look at this car as a determinant of success for Tesla in and of itself. Tesla's a much more complex company than just a car company, and often that's forgotten. I mean, this is a company that's involved in energy storage, renewable energy harnessing, the implications of vehicle-to-grid technology, autonomous vehicle software. So it's a much more complex company than just an auto company. I think the Model 3 is definitely moving into a market segment that's important, competing, of course, with the Chevy Bolt and other hybrids. People might be looking at something like a Camry hybrid, but turn to a Model 3 or a Chevy Bolt instead. So it's playing in that space, but I don't think it's the only variable that we should be using to determine Tesla's future.
I know. I guess I'm asking about the success of the vehicle part of Tesla's business. Do you think that's going to be a big hit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're under a lot of pressure, and people are discussing whether they can produce on time and whether they can deliver. But at the end of the day, let's say Tesla is late. Let's say it faces a lot of production bottlenecks. Really, at the end of the day, who cares? Because it's going to continue to produce a lot of these products for a market segment that's underserviced right now. Now, 10 years from now, that might have a significant impact. But the fact that Tesla also is going to be producing its own batteries, also going to be integrating its own powertrain, they have a supply chain that's undeveloped like any other auto company out there. They're really ahead of the curve in that whole energy matrix. That's where I would say the success factor can be identified. So the Model 3 might even be supplanted by another model in the future that's less expensive. Let's be frank, 45,000 is still quite expensive. But at the end of the day, it really does put Tesla at the front of that curve, pulling along, letting other companies follow it.
Right, but now there are a lot of companies in this particular segment. I mean, we had news this week that Volvo, for example, is going to soon be only making either hybrids or electric vehicles. And of course, you were saying you drive a Nissan.
Right.
And there are others. So how do you see Tesla shaping up in the sort of the competitive landscape?
Yeah, well, I would say actually there's two things going on here. One is people have really identified this week between Volvo and BMW's past announcements and Tesla's production start as a revolutionary week. If it is revolutionary, because that's definitely a hackneyed term, then it's more like the 1960s and 70s quiet revolution of Quebec, a slow overhauling of social norms. It's not really 1789 here with a Robespierre-style chopping off of heads revolution. That's not what's going on here, right? So it's a very slow evolution because these car companies will have been developing these efforts in electrification since 2014, 2015. In fact, back to 2011 when the corporate average fuel economy standards of Obama announced the doubling of fuel economy. So really we've got like a 6-7 year robust history here of car companies making these R&D decisions. The symptoms now are 2017 announcements. So these are not sort of the revolutionary moments. They're symptoms and indications of revolutionary decisions that were taken over the last 5.5 years.
Right.
So that's important to be able to identify. Now, having said that, every car company that comes out with new hybrids, plug-in hybrids, fully electric or hydrogen fuel cell cars can only be good for Tesla. So if we're talking about competition, people are going to say, well, look, there's Volvo models, there's BMW models. The reality is the more electric vehicles out there, the more models, the more the market shifts en masse. And it's that mass market shift that is going to create new clientele for Tesla and all other car companies playing in the electric game. I
wondered if you were referring to more the infrastructure because, you know, we need all these power or charging stations to be set up all over North America, theoretically. So is that what you're referring to when you say it's good for Tesla?
It's good for Tesla to have more people in the market where the people in the market look at electric vehicles not as new, but as standard fare. So if I gave you an example, analogy, how many people think that hybrids are bizarre products today. Nobody. You know, show up to the airport and pretty much all your taxis are hybrids. It's pretty common standard fare. The Prius is a well-known name. But ask yourself 20 years ago or 10 years ago, the hybrid technology was still critically questioned as whether it was feasible. So that's where Tesla and all the car companies need to get to. Therefore, the more car companies that announce electrified powertrain products, the better for all car companies that are involved in electric powertrain products, including Tesla. So it's basically more clientele at the table. What Tesla's fighting right now, like Volvo, like BMW, is the diesel and gasoline car owner or car buyer who just has no faith in electric propulsion. That's the big problem. It's not whether somebody's going to go Volvo or Tesla. That's the problem. It's whether they're going to go diesel or gasoline. That is the problem right now. Now, on the infrastructure piece, that definitely cannot be underscored enough. That's a very big, important element. Right now, we see a lot of government efforts to launch infrastructure. It has to be a private sector initiative. There has to be a profit-making motive attached to it. Car companies like Tesla have tried to solve this problem on their own. They won't be able to solve the mass electrification of transit or transportation charging on their own. So I do foresee that there will be, between 2017 and 2022, we will see bottlenecks on the charging infrastructure side in particular jurisdictions where governments and private sector have not aligned themselves to get this infrastructure out the door.
I have to ask you something about what happened with Tesla stock this week. I mean, it absolutely got clobbered and, in fact, lost its crown as the most highly valued company by market capitalization because the stock fell so much. GM took over again as being the most valuable. That's not going to have an impact, do you think, on its future?
I don't have a crystal ball and I don't read tea leaves, but when it comes down to stock prices, I mean, trying to predict what a bunch of supercomputers with algorithmic codes are deciding in an instantaneous moment about a stock price is hardly a good mechanism for utilizing to understand the fundamentals of a particular company. And while Tesla may have challenges, it's a big question, has it overextended? Has it overreached? Like any other car company that's trying to enter shared mobility and autonomous vehicles and lightweighting, electrification all at the same time, they're all facing the issue of have we overextended? That stock market drop could very well return, but I wouldn't make a prediction there. What I would look at is what are the fundamentals of this company? And again, I return to the issue that this company has extended in the ecosystem of electrification. And insofar as it can continue to fund itself, that ecosystem is going to be a long-term play. And it's not alone. Toyota is doing the same thing. So that means it's getting involved in energy storage, in renewable energy production, in the home and mobile energy storage that is going to power your car and power your home. So it's getting involved in that whole ecosystem that goes well beyond the automobile. And that's where I think probably the stock market price is not indicative of the real fundamentals of the company. Okay, just a quick answer here. What year do you think electric vehicles will be outselling the old combustion engines? So what year? Probably I would say around 2022 to 2025. That soon? I would say so in certain jurisdictions. In certain jurisdictions where we have tolls and carbon pricing and lack of parking for gasoline cars, so where there's a whole slew of initiatives to make gasoline and carbon intensive vehicles more expensive. Like California? Exactly. In those jurisdictions, you're going to see a price point inversion because of total cost of ownership. How much does it cost you to own and operate this car? But I think historians will look back from 1990 to 2030 as the period of electrification. And so the 30s will be sort of the ubiquitous period of electrification. Well, thank you so much for being here. You're welcome. Josipa Petrunic is with the Canadian Urban Transit Research and Innovation Consortium.